Welcome to the Online Itinerant's YouTube channel. The Online Itinerant exists to help lighten your load when it comes to meeting the needs of DHH students. Make sure to click subscribe to get trainings that will help reduce the time that you spend at your computer, allowing you more time at home with your family and friends, all while having a greater impact on your deaf and hard of hearing students. The Convention of American Instructors of the Deaf. Do me a favor, if you are familiar with this organization, put it in the chat. Let me know. Like, I'm familiar with it. I've heard of it. I've never heard of it. I'm a member. Kind of give me a little measure of your familiarity with CAID. I know that Kristen is a member of CAID, and you've been a member for a couple of years already, right, Kristen? Have you been a member for a long time? 2 years? Okay. Shirley's a member. Great. Kirsten has heard of it. Okay. Julie heard about it here weeks ago. Great. Okay. Well, Melissa it's new to Melissa. Great. Well, I'm so glad that you've been here. Yes. And Shirley's saying she's been a member for many years. And I have too. So interestingly enough, I joined CAID when I graduated college. It was a long time ago. I'm dating myself. But back when I graduated college, I was told that you need to become a member of your professional organization. You want to add that to your resume because that's an important thing. Everybody needs to be a member. Show the memberships of all the professional organizations that you're involved in and join CAID. And so I did. That was way back in 1996. So a long time ago. I became a member of the Convention of American Instructors of the Deaf. But I didn't really know the historical history of this organization. So I'm just going to give a little snapshot of CAID. And I think by the time we're done, I think you're going to be really intrigued and interested in what all CAID has to offer. So first of all, CAID it started off as a convention, and the first convention was in the year of 1850. So this is how far back this organization dates. And the very first meeting had 35 people from 6 institutions, including the American School for the Deaf, which was the very first established school for the deaf. Back in those days, anybody know what it was called when it was first established? It's one of those things that we shudder at today. It was the American Asylum for the Deaf and Dumb. And yet, it was the very first school for the deaf in our nation back in, I believe, 1817. So when we think of when our country established and then how soon after that we actually had our first deaf school, and today it is really an amazing part of our deaf history. Okay, so the American School for the Deaf, the Pennsylvania Institution, which is now the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf, the Indiana Institution, so now the Indiana School for the Deaf, which was where I got my training, Illinois Institution, Illinois School for the Deaf, North Carolina, and New York. Those were the 6 schools that were represented, and Thomas Gallaudet was there for the very first convention of teachers for children who are deaf and hard of hearing. And in 1895, they decided to make it like an act of Congress, that it was a formal official organization. So this is how long this organization has been around. But think about the timing here on the bottom of the slide. I don't know if you can see it because of the way that these slides go. Okay, we have to think back to our deaf history here. So the Milan Conference, everybody familiar with the Milan Conference of 1880? So this was the convention in Milan that determined at that time that the best way to educate deaf children was through the oral method. Now in deaf education, that is a very hot item in deaf education because there were no deaf representatives there. It wasn't equally balanced. At that time, the United States did not feel that oral education was necessarily the best way to instruct children. There was a lot more flexibility here in the United States compared to Europe. But in 1880, that Congress kind of made that determination Nobody from CAID was at that conference. So at that time, CAID offered a lot of opportunities to debate and to discuss methodologies, so manual versus oral. And CAID overall kind of supported this, what they called the combined system. So, kind of both supporting sign language and oral education. But in 1890, Alexander Graham Bell established, well, it was A.G. Bell, which was, of course, very strong oral components. So then in 1895, almost as a response to that, CAID became a formal establishment as an act of Congress. And that is the time. So really back in those days, there was intense discussion about the education of deaf children and what it should look like. So during this, yep, here we go. So here's the Milan Conference, A.G. Bell, and then CAID. Now, CAID had already been meeting for a long time. It was already established, but it wasn't like a formal organization. And here it was an act of Congress that they created it. So at that time, CAID's purpose was for the promotion and education of children of the deaf of the broadest, most advanced, and practical lines. There are literally, once it became a formal organization, there are records of every single meeting that happened since 1850, and the procedure and documentation, just like we currently have today. But a lot of discussion of methods and standards and debates over how to educate kids. And then 21st century, it moved more towards special interest groups. This is where we are today. We've got special interest groups. We've got virtual professional development. There are grants, and we are working at a national and international reach. So it's kind of evolved. The other important thing that I feel like is really significant about CAID is related to the American Annals of the Deaf. Familiar? Anybody familiar with this journal? Yeah. So this journal was established by the American School for the Deaf in 1847. And it talked about instructional practices, reports from schools, scientific and philosophical discussions about deaf education. And it really became the central professional publication for the teachers of the deaf. So the publication of this started in 1847. In 1850, once the once CAID started, then this became kind of CAID's journal. And so CAID really was the organization that kind of created the articles that were inside of it, and the different things that would happen at the convention would be included in the journal. So it really represented the collective voice of deaf education, but very much related to CAID. Today, this publication is still around, and it is a research-driven scholarly journal, one of the most respected and longest running deaf education journals in the world. And CAID still is very involved in choosing articles, helping publish it, but it's articles from all over the world. Our members are blind editors, blind readers, to make sure that all the journals, the research is appropriate, and it's a really great publication. So even today, what are we looking at? 175 years later, CAID is still around, and it's still shaping practice in our professional community. So this is kind of CAID in the nutshell. And when you become a member of CAID, you're becoming a member of this organization that was established in 1850 alongside of Thomas Gallaudet. And for me, when I remember visiting Gallaudet. Anybody been on the campus of Gallaudet? I haven't been as often as I would love to have gone. But when you're there, you really feel this impact of history, this impact of deaf education, and it's pretty grand. You stand on on like this main building, and you oversee the capital of, the capital of the United States. And it's like kind of this great feeling. And to think, this is where Thomas Gallaudet stood. This is where it all, this is where great things have happened in the education of deaf children. And when I joined CAID, I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to be part of that movement, if you will. I wanted to be part of that motion. And that was when I joined way back when. So back in 2021, though, let me go back a little bit here, because in the historically, any and every teacher of the deaf in the nation was a member of this organization. So in California, Julie, you'll be interested in this. To get your teaching license, you had to be a member of CAID. It was just automatically a part of your teaching credential. And every single teacher every single teacher of the deaf in the United States was a member of CAID. It was just part of your licensure and what happened. And then there was basically, very few conferences in our nation that supported teachers of the deaf. And so everybody would go to this one conference every year. At one point, CAID had over 1,000 members in this organization. Now, as we know, deaf education shifted in a really big way, because all of the kids back then, I shouldn't say all of the kids, but the majority of students went to the residential school. And the majority of teachers of the deaf were teachers at the residential schools. But of course, about that time that I graduated in 1996, things started to change in deaf education, and kids started to stay in their home districts, and fewer kids started going to the deaf school. And deaf education at that time, in my experience, it really started to shift. And I see a huge difference in what deaf education looks like today versus what deaf education looked like when I first started. What happened with CAID is that as that shift happened and the teachers kind of moved out of the residential schools, and there became more of a calling for itinerant teachers, teachers would graduate and they would not hear about CAID. It was no longer a requirement to be a member of CAID. At the same time, the states started to host their own conferences for teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, or there were different kind of areas, the Midwest versus the West or the East. And so the membership of CAID gradually declined until 2021, when it almost dissolved because there were so few members of CAID that it was no longer able to support itself. So at that time, they put a call out to all of the current members and said, we need to shift. This organization needs help. And in order for us to stay with the times, we need kind of an overhaul to be able to continue the history that has been created with CAID. And otherwise, our entire organization is going to dissolve. And that would be an absolutely terrible thing to happen based on the history of this organization. So in 2021, I became the president of CAID, CAID, and you'll hear it's referenced both ways. And I am so happy that I became the president of this organization, because I will tell you, it feels like I have had an opportunity to contribute to this profession in a way that I would have never had the opportunity to contribute before. So people say, well, what is the difference between the online itinerant and CAID? And I just want to kind of like separate kind of the differences for this, because it is confusing. But the online itinerant, as you know, really my focus with the online itinerant is to support you in your day-to-day practice. So we're talking about kind of, these lesson plannings, these self-advocacy needs. Back when kids were at the School for the Deaf, there wasn't really a need for self-advocacy as much, because everybody was together and they didn't need to advocate. Well, I shouldn't say they didn't need to advocate, but it just looked very different, right? It looked very different. The needs of our students today in terms of language access and self-advocacy and all of that. It just looks very different than it did historically. But I support itinerant systems and assessment and goal writing, and I'm not exclusively for itinerant teachers, but that just happens to be where the service delivery that most of our teachers are. CAID, on the other hand, is much more big picture. It is really more about like your deaf education philosophy and professional identity and that historical continuity, professional collaboration. So when you're a member of CAID, you have an opportunity to become a part of what we call a SIG. SIG, which stands for a special interest group. And in these special interest groups, the group has an opportunity to create resources and even systems and white papers that are published then on a national level and can support people on a national level. The CAID has member benefits and it is member run. It provides grants and awards, and again, these SIG groups that you have an opportunity to pour into, be part of, and create resources for. And it's really kind of neat what the SIG groups are doing. And what is about to happen right now, as I mentioned, I am going to be not hosting these for the next couple weeks because there is a virtual conference that's coming up. And this virtual conference, now, okay. When you ask people what kind of conference people want to attend, in general, people say they would love to attend an in-person conference. But when it comes to practicality and being able to get places and budget-wise, virtual conferences are much more feasible, right? So CAID, but what you miss out on in a virtual conference is the opportunity to network and connect and just kind of get that energy that you get when you meet with people. And so CAID is doing a different approach to a virtual conference. And I am just going to zoom in on these three presenters that we've got. So Kimberly Sanzo is the founder of Language First. If you're familiar with Language First, it's amazing. And then we've got Candace Jones and Reggie Bess, who are from Gallaudet University. And then we've got Kelsey Spurgeon from Ball State University. Each one of these presenters have a training for you that will be released virtually that you can watch on your own time. But CAID is flipping the virtual conference because after you get the training, then they are going to have a special networking group where you come together in Zoom and you get to take what you've learned the next steps so that you can figure out how to apply it. And this is one of the challenges with any virtual training. I know you have all experienced this, even through the online itinerant, is you get some information, but it's sometimes enough to get you started, but maybe not enough to keep you going, or maybe not even enough to get you started. It's enough to kind of like get you to want it, but not enough to actually put it into action. So the application groups that CAID is offering is an opportunity for you to take your knowledge and then work with the presenters personally in Zoom and be able to ask the questions and get the tools for you to be able to implement it in your environment, because it makes a difference whether you've got young kids or older kids, or if you're in a self-contained room, or if you're itinerant. And these application groups are meant to really hone in on what will support you to be able to implement what you're learning in these trainings. So the other thing about CAID is next year, it is an election year. So we've got our membership has grown now to almost 300 people. And we'll be having an election year coming up next year, like as in January, we'll be talking about it. And I think the election will be in February, I think. And it's an opportunity if you want to be in leadership in a national organization, then this is a great opportunity to consider that. So I'm just going to show you the CAID website if this will work for me to go. Might be, there we go. Okay. So if you go to, I can put it in the chat, but okay. Can you all see my website? Okay, so when you go to the website, here we go. The first thing that's being highlighted is this upcoming conference. And then we've got some new information. Here is something that's really amazing about CAID are these awards and grants. So there are, I think that the application is closed, but they will be announcing these awards soon. So there is a special award for an itinerant teacher, special award for center base, and then the grants. And I'm not kidding you, when the money that is available for this is like $1,000, that CAID is able to provide basically a check for people to be able to support. And as teachers of deaf, we don't get a lot of that, right? We don't get a lot of opportunities for grants or to be recognized in what we're doing or anything like that. So I am just so happy that CAID is doing that and is able to do that. So there's CAID, and then here's some information about CAID on here. And then I do have this little video that I'm going to show you about top 10 reasons to join CAID. Okay. I'm gonna keep the music up. Okay. All right, so that is okay. Truth. Members of CAID get discounts on all kinds of insurances. So liability, home, auto, free term life insurance, and there's even like a pet insurance. So if your pets have to go to the vet and have surgery, there's pet insurance through CAID. If anybody, I get my liability insurance because I do not work for a school district. I'm just a personal contractor. But so you can get your professional liability through CAID. And if you didn't want to go through your school, if you've got it through your school, but you didn't want to go through your school for any reason, then CAID has got a significant, nice discount on that. Okay. Oh, even on identity theft insurance. And this is interesting too. If you ever need any legal support for anything, they've got discounts on there's I don't want to say it's free legal support, but it's really discounted advice, or if you need somebody to help you or support you or represent you, then you can consult with an attorney for either nothing or almost nothing available at the lots of different things, but I don't even pull about. These are the current special interest groups. So the administrator support is a group that works towards creating resources for administrators to help them understand the needs of their DHH teachers and students. Our Deaf Plus Autism group is actually very active. They get together, they're working on putting together trainings and just really supporting each other and supporting kids that are deaf plus autistic. Educational interpreters, itinerant teachers, virtual teachers. This is the only virtual teacher group that I'm familiar with. So if you're teaching virtually and you're like, oh, I wish I knew somebody else who was doing this, it is a great group to get involved in. There are discounts on the American Annals for the Deaf and the CAID conferences. So if you're a member of CAID, then you can attend this is interesting. Membership to CAID is $60. That's it, $60. And if you're a member of CAID, then your conference is $97. If you're not a member of CAID, your conference is $197. So it's actually cheaper to join CAID and then go to the conference than it would be just to not go to just to go to the conference without being a CAID member. And CAID does represent you as a profession at a national level. So we're very close with the CAID and other national organizations. Your voice is definitely represented at a national level. The first professional development conference. Networking opportunities. Peter or she covered to last time for those. And then just some people that you get through that. Oh, okay. So prepared. So inside, this is what the itinerant teachers do. They have these great resources of all kinds of things, including the online itinerant. I'm so happy that I'm in here, but other resources as well. And one of the hot ones, I love this, the research summaries. The research group, I'm not getting the right term, but in any case, the research group, they take all the research and then they compile it so that you're not reading a 40-page article of the research, you're reading a 2-page article of what does the research say and how can you implement it. It's like quick, very digestible. So there was one on morpheme instruction and phonetic awareness. So really great. Anybody familiar with this workload calculator? So the workload calculator is different than our caseload. So the workload calculator, there can be a zoom here. Okay, so it takes not only all of your caseload with your minutes that you see your students, but it also embeds the IEP meeting times, the time that you need for evaluation and writing reports, your in-service time. It includes the minutes that it takes you to walk back and forth to your student, to check hearing aids while you're in the building. All of those extra things that administrators don't account for when they tell you, well, you've got time on your caseload for 3 more students. And you're like, no, I really don't. I'm already working, more than 40 hours a week. So it actually takes all of that information and it calculates it for you exactly how many minutes you're actually working. And what's really interesting about it, because I haven't seen this anywhere else. It's really hard to calculate when you see one student 3 times a week, another student once a month, and then another student twice a week. It's like hard to get this overall big picture of how many hours a week you're actually working when the math is so complicated. But this does all the math for you. It's just built up. That has been game changing for a lot of people. It's actually supported hiring new people. It's actually supported people being able to get bigger or smaller caseloads just by being able to show what their actual workload is. Okay. All right, you guys are hanging in there. Great, in a really good way. Let me see if there is any more that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, that's it. That is what I wanted to tell you. So here I am as the president of CAID, getting ready to launch this conference that's coming up. How it works is that you get access to the 3 trainings as soon as it launches, but you can watch it on your own time. And then the application groups don't happen until the end of January. So you actually have 5 weeks or something like that to be able to watch the training, try it out, be able to work through a little bit of it, and then be able to come into the Zoom and be able to figure out what you need to do to apply it. This is something that I would love to do through the online itinerant, but with everything that the online itinerant does, there's just not time to be able to do it. But CAID is able to do it. I'm really blessed to be able to be a part of this organization and part of the leadership of it. And I know a lot of people aren't familiar with it, or they don't even know what's all available to you. We just moved to a new portal, so just moved to a better website. So if you haven't been on the website lately, it's worth going to the new website and checking it out because it's much better than what it used to be. You'll love this. When I became president, we were using a website from 1996. Now, if you know anything about websites, and how websites have changed since 1996, it was terrible. It was so bad. But we didn't have any money. We didn't have a budget to be able to get a good website. So we got a temporary website. And now that we've got a nice membership of almost 300 people, now we've finally been able to move into a website that's actually the same platform that I use that's through the online itinerant. So I know how to navigate it. So you'll be, if you're familiar with your platform and the online itinerant, you'll be able to navigate very easily through the CAID website. So I just want to open up the chat and see if anybody has any questions or anything Oh, hi, Stephanie. I see your chat. Okay, so let me scroll up here. Okay, so Sherry made a comment that the first time that she joined CAID, she had to submit. I'm sorry, Shirley, had to submit several papers, projects, outline types of work that I had, and it took a long time to submit all the requirements. Then you had to wait for acceptance. That is interesting. So, Shirley, you had to apply to become a member of CAID back then? That must have been before I did in 1996, because I don't remember having to do
No,
that.
actually, it was later. I was thinking I didn't do 96. Well, maybe in that, I don't know. I've been, I don't know, but
Maybe
it
I
was
did it and I don't even
amazing.
remember.
Maybe not, but I thought, wow, I don't want to do all this work. And then I really wanted to become a member after I figured it out.
Yeah,
That, but we didn't have virtual. You didn't really get, I didn't really, there wasn't any participation that I could do other than belonging to this organization and I put it down on my resume.
absolutely. Add it to your resume, and then you could go to the convention once a year if you could go. Yeah, interesting. I love it. I love it. And yeah, Stephanie writes about I love the concept of buffer time. The concept of this workload calculator has come from those of us in the field who our our caseloads are just really heavy. And you realize that when you see a student every day, it looks different than when you see a student every week. But when you see a student people they don't think about the time that it takes you to park the car, to walk in, to say hi to the secretary, to sign in, to go grab your student, walk them to the room, take them back, check the hearing aids. None of that stuff is embedded in. And then, of course, writing notes afterwards and all of that stuff. And so yeah, getting your bag, your luggage, all the stuff that you're hauling to pack up to do all of that. And exactly, Shirley, you're so right about all of it. So the workload calculator is a fabulous way to really get a sense of, okay, how much time, if you're new on the job, you've got a new caseload and you want to figure out, okay, how long am I going to need to get from point A to point B and all of that stuff. It's a really, really, really great tool. So I hope if you're not a member of CAID that I've convinced all of you to consider joining and become a member. And you'll see, of course, even more of me but I want you to maintain your membership through the online itinerant because they are different. They are different and they fit different purposes. But it is pretty neat to be a part of your national organization. And these days, with Zoom, with the virtual SIG groups, with all of that, you really do have an opportunity to plug in as much or as little as you want to. Some of the groups, people are like, just send me the email and just keep me updated on what you're talking about. And other people are like, hey, I want to be the one who's writing the paper, who's, giving you the resources. And that's great. You've got that flexibility to do whatever you want to do. So, what questions do you have? Who's got questions? The other thing that CAID offers that is really nice that I wish the online itinerant had time to do, but just don't, is this opportunity to choose this group, like the virtual, if you're a virtual teacher, to just talk about virtual resources and how you cope with virtual students or the deaf plus autistic, how you navigate that. It's a totally different situation. So to be able to sit with other people and only talk about that, to only focus on that, it really is really cool. Yes, and Stephanie says they used to have subject area groups for teaching. That's how this has changed. So historically, they would be like teachers of English, teachers of English or teachers of math or teachers of social studies. And then it was also separated by state or by region. And there even were like groups, people would get together in the different regions and they would have like a regional representative. And that, of course, has shifted because very few of us are teaching science or math. It's more of a more global approach to service delivery in general. But the nice thing about CAID today, even, is there's still opportunity for these special interest groups. So if anybody who wants a special interest group who's interested in teaching reading, we even were talking with some people who wanted to create a special interest group for the Bedrock curriculum. And they were like, I'm interested in creating a special interest group for the Bedrock curriculum. Absolutely. CAID is like, great. If we've got enough people to get to start it up, then we will run it. That's how the Deaf Plus Autism group started. Is there was a big conference in Pennsylvania, and they said, oh, we want to continue these conversations. Would CAID be a venue for us? And we were like, you bet, CAID is a venue. So there's just a lot of opportunity for you there. So, well, I hope I've given you some great information about this organization. I hope you learned about CAID today and that this video was super helpful for you. Remember, click subscribe to keep learning from the online itinerant.